It's a dangerous thing if you're going to preach to ask people to close their eyes and imagine something. Because if you can do that in church in a pew, the chances of you staying awake when you're sitting at home in comfortable chairs is very, very great, but we'll try. Anyway, here we go. Imagine that this is happening to you. You're, you're on a whole holiday in Israel. You're a tourist, or perhaps you're in a Christian group to see for yourself the places you've read about in the Bible. You've been thrilled to stand where Jesus might have stood, to see what his eyes would have seen. You've walked the same stone streets in Jerusalem where he walked. You've seen the mountains around Nazareth that he saw when he was a boy. You've stood on the hills near Bethlehem, the hills where shepherds watched their flocks by night. Today, your group is traveling down the Jordan Valley. And you begin right up north, very near the border with Lebanon, at a place called Banias. It's where the Jordan River springs out of the foothills of Mount Hermon before beginning its journey down through Israel. Now, the Jordan is the only major river in the whole of Israel. And so you expect to meet a mighty river, a bit like the Mississippi. So when you do see it, you're very surprised. The Negro spiritual says the River Jordan is deep and wide, but it's not. The Jordan's not deep. It varies between 3 feet and 10 feet. And at its widest, it's only 30 yards from one bank to the other. When Elisha told Naaman the Syrian to wash in the Jordan to cure his leprosy, no wonder Naaman wasn't impressed. The Avon River is as big as the Jordan. On your journey, your group has just got used to what the Jordan's like, how little it is when you come to the first sea that it created, what we call the Sea of Galilee. It's not really a sea, it's a big lake. Its other name is Lake Gennesaret. It's about 14 miles long and 4 miles wide, and it's shaped like a harp. The area around Galilee is the most fertile land in all Israel. Most of the food in the country, the grain and the fruit and the olives, are all grown there. And almost all the fish that people eat come from the lake. So the Sea of Galilee is a rich, living thing. It's a source of livelihood for most of the people around. It's a vital part of their lives. If you sit on the grass of any of the hills around and the sun is shining, you're very conscious of the calm and the serenity all around you. It's a lovely place to be. It's where Jesus preached the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes, and you feel blessed just being here. Your tour guide has arranged for you to have your picnic lunch here, sitting on the grass, possibly where those 5,000 people sat when Jesus gave them a picnic of bread and fish. And you can really feel the peace and the calm. And then you get back on the coach and drive on, following the river for another 60 miles until just past Jericho, you come to the next sea that the Jordan made. And it's very different from the Sea of Galilee. This one is much bigger. It's over 50 miles long and about 10 miles wide. And in parts, it's over 1,000 feet deep. Around it, there are no calm grassy slopes like there are round the Sea of Galilee. Instead, you'll see stark baking hills of rock that throw the heat of the sun back at you. It's the lowest spot on the surface of the earth, over 1,200 feet below sea level. We know it as the Dead Sea, because that's what it is, dead. There are no fish in it. Nothing can live in its water, and that water is slimy to the touch. It's the one the Jews call the Salt Sea, because 1/3 of it is salt. It's 8 times more salty than ordinary seawater. One of the things all visitors do when they go to the Dead Sea is to swim in it, or try to, because you can't swim in it. It won't let you. Instead, you bob about on the surface like a cork. You're advised not to stay in the water more than 20 minutes, because if you do, the salts and the chemicals in the water will be absorbed into your body through the pores in your skin, and you'll begin to be poisoned. And when you come out of the water onto the rocky beach, you will find lines of showers for you to rinse your skin with fresh water. Because if you don't, after a few seconds in the sun, you'll be covered in a layer of dried salt. It makes you think of the story of Lot's wife in a very different way. Now back to reflect a little more on the Jordan Valley. Why are these seas so different? They're only 60 miles apart. They're part of the same valley. They're fed by the same river. The same water enters each of them. So why is one teeming with life and one totally dead? Why is one a beautiful place, welcoming and full of calm and peace, and the other oppressive and forbidding, a place that instinctively you're glad to get away from? The answer's in the river that feeds both of them, the Jordan. The Jordan flows into and out of the Sea of Galilee. Then, 60 miles further on, it flows into the Dead Sea. But this time, it doesn't flow out again, because it can't. Water will only flow downhill, and from here, there's no downhill for it to go. It's already at the lowest point on the earth. So the water just stays there. And because it's so hot there, the water evaporates. It evaporates just as fast as it flows in. And the salt stays behind, making the sea more and more salty, until it's in the state it's in today, one of the most desolate places on earth. While not very far away, the same river has created one of the most fertile areas, not just in Israel, but in the whole of the Middle East. Now you're wondering, why am I telling you all this? It's not because I think it's time you had a geography lesson. And I'm not telling you because I like showing off what I know. Though my family and friends will probably tell you different. No, I'm telling you because I think it has something to say to us. Even here in Wales, where we have more rain than we know what to do with. It has something to say to us about the way we worship and the way we live. Because our lives can be like these two seas. We can be like the Sea of Galilee, clean and pure and fertile, full of good things, a source of blessing to all those who come into contact with us. Or we can be like the Dead Sea, bitter, stagnant, empty of life, a place that people instinctively want to stay away from. We can be either. We all know people who are like the Sea of Galilee, people who we're pleased to meet, people who always seem to make us feel better after we have met them. And we all know the other sort of people who are grim and bad-tempered, people who always leave us unsettled and out of sorts, the kind of people we cross the street to avoid. What makes the difference? And which kind are we? Do we have any choice? Or have we just got to play with the hand we were dealt when we were born? Can we make any difference? And if we can, what does make the difference? The answer is yes, we can choose. We can be different. And what makes the difference in us is the same thing that makes the difference between the Sea of Galilee and the Dead Sea. The Jordan River brings life and freshness and variety into the Sea of Galilee, and in its turn, the Sea of Galilee sends that life and freshness and variety on as the river flows out at the other end. So the Sea of Galilee is constantly refreshed. It receives and it gives in its turn, day after day, year after year, forever. The Dead Sea also receives, but it gives nothing, because nothing flows out. And so even the life the Jordan pumps into it is poisoned and killed. It's become a place of death and desolation. And it's the same with us. We all receive a stream of blessing from God, a constant stream, an ever-flowing stream. It's up to us what we do with it. If we give as well as receive, if we let that blessing flow out to others by what we say and what we do, then, like the Sea of Galilee, we stay fresh and alive. But if we take and keep, then we make what God has given us dead and worthless, just as the Dead Sea makes the fresh water the Jordan gives it dead and worthless. That's why God doesn't give us our blessings in a deposit account to be kept and hoarded so that they multiply. It's not the same as money. They won't multiply. They'll just wither and waste away until you're left wondering where they've gone to. No, God will only place our blessings in a current account so that we can give them away as fast as we get them. And those blessings are not like money either, because we'll find that the more we give away, the more we have. They make nonsense of the laws of economics. Economics is an invention of men and women. But God isn't an economist. His laws are different. That's why the Apostle Paul could say in his first letter to the Christians at Corinth, the foolishness of God is wiser than the wisdom of men. Say that again. The foolishness of God is wiser than the wisdom of men. He was right, so perhaps we should take more notice of it. And then we'll become streams of ever-flowing water, bringing the life that God gives us to everyone we meet. Amen.